Our last but not least TED Talk style presentation called Every Connection Counts, Broadband Demographic Data and the U.S. Census. We have with us this morning Monica Cruz, who's the State Data Lead and Special Research Associate with the Texas Demographic Center, here to talk to us about the important role of demographic data and some of the really interesting work that her organization does. So I'm going to invite her up onto the stage.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? All right. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm going to provide for you all a little bit about who we are and some of the work that we do at the Texas Demographic Center, as well as provide some recently released data on demographic changes happening in Texas, and then talk about an initiative, I think, because that's really important, because we're already thinking about 2030 census. So I want to share the importance of that. So a little bit about who we are. We are under the leadership of the state demographer, Dr. Lloyd Potter. We are affiliated with the University of Texas in San Antonio under the Institute for Demographic and Socioeconomic Research. One of our major functions is that we produce population estimates and biennial population projections for the state of Texas. We do respond to a lot of data requests. We're always available to support any nonprofits, governmental entities that might need some demographic data, perhaps for grant writing or publications or whatnot. We're here to support that. We are a member of the U.S. Census Bureau's State Data Center Network. We are the entity in Texas that works very closely with the Census Bureau. I myself sit on a national steering committee for the state data centers, and we meet regularly with our counterparts and our folks over in the Census Bureau. We're here as a voice for Texas, and when we sit at the table with the Census Bureau, we're not Census Bureau employees. We're just part of that network, and we do it with a lot of pride and advocacy for our state. So the latest recently released data for Texas, the Texas population has now surpassed 31.7 million, and I don't know why it's going forward on me. 31.7 million is our population. So this was just released as of a week or two ago, and so that is a numeric increase of about 391,000 new residents in Texas, and that increase, that percent increase from 2024 to 2025 is at 1.2%. So what that pretty much calculates to be, turns out to be, we have a population increase of about 1,072 new Texans daily. So when we look at population change and the components of population change, there's three areas that we look at. The first is what we call natural increase or natural change. So we think of a population increase within a particular geographic area, we look at births and deaths. So when we say natural increase, that means we have more births than deaths. We also look at migration, and migration is divided between international migration, meaning folks coming from other parts of the world to Texas, and then, of course, domestic migration, meaning folks moving from other parts of the U.S. to Texas. So that, again, calculates to about 1,072 new Texans daily. So we're looking at trends here ever since from 2020 to 2020, the most recent data we have. We look at those components of population change, and these are bar graphs rather than circle graphs. But you can see here, certainly from 2020 to 2021, right after, we're in the midst still of COVID, there wasn't a lot of migration happening, except for domestic migration. So everyone was working from home, moving to Texas, We had a lot of folks moving. But I'll move, since I only have 15 minutes, I just want to look more closely at the last two bars. Between 2023 and 2024, we had a daily population change of about 1,642 new Texans from 2023 to 2024. The recent data that we're having come out of the Census Bureau is that's come down to 1,072 new Texans, daily average population change. So you can see with the last graph and the most recent data that we have that I shared, we've seen certainly a net drop in international migration, net domestic migration, meaning folks moving from other parts of the country to Texas, has also gone down. Yet natural increase has actually kind of remained fairly steady. So that's the most recent data with our changes in Texas. So this actually looks at the data I just provided for you in the slide before was looking at population change throughout the whole state. Here, the Census Bureau has not released that data for counties yet. There's always a delay when we get data, as you might know. But the most recent data that we have for numeric change in Texas between 2023 and 2024, you see that the darker colored counties are the counties where we have highest concentration of population. The most change happening is in those counties. But you can see, though, throughout all of our 254 counties, you have counties that are light colored, and you'll see that oftentimes those are the counties that are actually losing population, at least in those recent estimates. So between 2023 and 2024, the lighter colored counties, or the white ones there, least shaded, are those that actually lost population in Texas. So we continue to kind of monitor every time we release new population estimates. We look at that data from at a county level as well. So again, looking at the county data, Texas counties with the largest numeric growth. So even though, just so that we know and we understand that nationally, though, even though we've seen some drops in population, Texas continues to rank first in the country on population growth. I think that's just important to know. When we look at the county level data that I shared with you in the home map, but now looking more at counties on this bar graph, these were Texas counties with the largest numeric growth from 2023 to 2024, and their rankings nationally. There are over 3,000 counties in the whole U.S. We have 254. When I sit with my counterparts in other states, they say, how many do you have? I go, yes, 254. But from 2023 to 2024, Harris County ranked first in the country on numeric growth, adding over 100,000 residents. The next highest county ranked fourth in the U.S., and that's Collin County. I'll just go through these: Montgomery, Tarrant, Denton, Fort Bend, Bexar County, Williamson, Dallas, and Travis County. All ranked at least among the top 50 of all counties in the U.S. on numeric growth. Another lens that we look at when we look at counties, we look at fastest growth rate, right? So these are smaller counties, but they're moving and increasing in population quite rapidly. And so oftentimes you'll see that most of these counties are kind of in the suburban ring counties, right outside those major core urban counties. So from 2023 to 2024, Kaufman County ranked second in the country with the fastest growth rate. Other counties that ranked among the top 25 in the U.S. on growth rates were Liberty, Montgomery, Caldwell, Hunt, Wise, Rockwall, Ellis, Comal, and Collin counties, right? These are counties that are, we've seen them grow considerably, from one year to the next. When we look at projected population growth, so as I shared, the Texas Demographic Center, we produce biannual population projections for the state and all counties in Texas, and we have different scenarios. So we update our population projections every 2 years to kind of monitor what's happening in the state with population, right? So our most recent population projections show that, that by 2060, we think that the Texas population will reach about 42.6 million if the same patterns continue. Now, this might be changing. And when we release our population projections, we offer a mid, low, and high migration scenario depending on, where we go. So it's within a range. So we'll probably be releasing those population projections again this fall just to see, based on what we're seeing, patterns of growth, slow down in growth, we might have to adjust our population projections. And just so that you know, our populations projections are used quite a bit by Texas metropolitan planning organizations, the Water Board, when they're looking at their state water plan, they take our data and use it for planning purposes. And these, when we look at 2060, from 2020 to 2060, based on our most recent population projections, you'll see that this is the change that we see. So we feel like certainly the darker shaded green counties here is where we see that counties will see the highest and fastest growth rates based on the most recent data that we have, whereas we see counties that are in red possibly continuing, if it continues, to lose some population. So one of the things that we are already focused on is the 2030 census. 2030 census seems like it's far, but it's not. And I'll tell you why here in our role with the Texas Demographic Center and all of our very key partners and stakeholders are starting to think closely and plan for the 2030 census. So between 2010 and 2020, those two decennial censuses, Texas ranked first in the country on numeric growth, adding nearly 4 million people to our population. Yet, in 2020, during the 2020 census, Texas, the Census Bureau stated that we were one of 6 states that had an undercount in our population. Okay, we ranked number 1, but the Census Bureau said, we know we missed some folks, right? Undercounting the population costs us billions in lost funding for infrastructure, healthcare, and social services throughout the decade. The decennial census is so critical, and we know 2020 was a complicated year. If y'all remember what's happening, COVID happened in March, Census Day is April 1st, okay? So there is a lot of challenges here, but we still, we're concerned. So preparation is really key as we look forward to 2030. Now, one of the things that we've done here internally through the Texas Demographic Center is we said, one of the really key and important steps in preparing for the 2030 census is having good residential address data. It's very critical. So we're going to start talking, we're on a campaign this year to talk about LUCA. So you might hear, what is LUCA? LUCA is the local update of census addresses. And I'm going to go really quick through some of these slides in a minute, more in detail about what that is. But why good population data matters, okay? The program on government accountability oversight, it's a nonprofit that's done some work. They recently looked at Texas, took a snapshot in 2023, and just looked at what kind of funding do we get that's, census data-based data funding that we get that supports programs in Texas. And they looked at all kinds of funding programs, from healthcare to infrastructure, et cetera. And what they came out with was that Texas received over $152 billion in census-guided federal assistance in 2023. So this is the Project on Government Oversight report. You can look it up. This is so key and so important. So what is LUCA and why is it important? As I said, it's the local update of census addresses, and it authorizes the Census Bureau to work with local governments to provide updates on residential housing units. Correct and accurate residential addresses is what the Census Bureau will use for what is called their master address file. And that's the file that they use to disseminate the 2030 census survey. Okay? If y'all remember, you get a census every 10 years, wherever you're living. Someone in your household is supposed to fill that out. For a long time, it was by paper. In 2020, it was the first time we could do it through the internet. Okay? That doesn't mean that the census is not going to keep mailing paper surveys, but in 2020, it was the first time that a household could respond via the internet. And we'll continue to do that, have that opportunity. So what's really, really key is that LUCA participation is the most direct method and the only opportunity for local governments to provide input on residential addresses to the census before 2030. It is critical. It's the only opportunity local governments can do that. So it's not mandatory, but highly recommended. And I can tell you from our own analysis, we didn't do a very good job participating in LUCA leading up to the 2020 census. We want to do better. So who can participate, right? Highest elected officials, states, counties, cities, townships, federally recognized tribal nations are the ones, those highest elected officials, meaning judges, mayors, they're the ones that will get notification and can work with their local entities to get this address data updated. So a quick timeline on this. We're starting our campaign to plant seeds, but LUCA actually opens up next year in 2027, and then local governments can submit updated addresses from fall of 2027 through 2028 is the deadline. March 31st of 2028 is the deadline for any local entities to provide updated addresses. We're glad to say that we are concerned about rural Texas, right? And we're working with one of our partners, Texas Census Institute, on a pilot project in Newton County to really kind of look at the data and make sure that we have a plan to support our rural counties for sure. And those highly elected officials can designate their staff to help provide updates to those addresses. So this is my last slide. What can you do now? You can visit the Census Bureau has a 2030 census operation website. Local governmental entities can obtain data on residential addresses, 911, residential addresses from local government, commercial contractors. Can identify staff or contractors who have technical skills to utilize the Census Bureau's address counting list, what they already have. But look at if there's gaps, let's start working on that. Plan for some budget allocation in case you need someone who can help you locally with that to update your addresses. And just follow us, Texas Demographic Center. We're going to start working with our partners through Texas Association of Counties, Texas Municipal League, the regional councils. We're trying to get the word out because it's really, really, really important. So we hope that wherever you're sitting and you know folks in your local communities to join our efforts to make Texas count. Thank you so much for your time.